Ruairi Quinn. The Deputy has nearly 11 minutes.
Thank you, Councillor. This is the second time in my political lifetime in this chamber that I have seen the Fianna Fáil party bring this country to the verge of bankruptcy. I sat on these benches in 1977 when the triumphant Jack Lynch came in with his manifesto of economic illiteracy, which believed that you could borrow your way into the future in other people's currencies. An economy that collapsed amidst its own contradictions when Jack Lynch was ousted 2 years later. And then Mr. Haughey, clinging to power for reasons that we now fully understand, and literally giving money to everybody and anybody. For those of us who are old enough to remember, and for those of us who still have the scars, the crawl back through 3 general elections between 1981 and 1982 was a difficult time for everybody. But we did crawl back, and slowly but surely, through that very difficult period of the 80s, and we tried to get the country back on its feet again. And not just people on this side of the House, people on your side of the House as well, who recognised that mistakes had been made and had at least the honesty to recognise them and to deal with them. When we went into government with Fianna Fáil in 1992 and left in 1997, I had the honour to be Minister for Finance. I had the responsibility and the courage to ensure that we wouldn't try and buy the next election. As a consequence, you, sir, the colleagues beside you, inherited a surplus, the first planned surplus in over 30 years, planned surplus, the most competitive economy in Europe at that time, creating 1,000 jobs a week and with unemployment rapidly falling. The 1997-2010 period should have been a wonderful period of prosperity, of shared opportunity, of modest and prudent investment. But you've blown it. And let me give you one iconic example. 100 years ago in this city, or across the country, children were getting out of overcrowded tenement buildings in urban Ireland and poorly built thatched cottages in rural Ireland, with no running water, no decent construction, dampness and cold in the winter, and walking to school across this land, and being housed and educated in classrooms that were buildings which were state-of-the-art at that time. And you know them. They are part of our rural landscape. Those children got the best, were educated in the best physical surroundings that were available to them, better than anything that they lived in or went home to. Fast forward to today. The grandchildren of those grandparents get up in warm beds in centrally heated houses, double glazed windows and patios, walk to 1 or 2 or 3 cars, and are driven to school. And their school classroom is a prefab. A prefab. 100,000 children are currently in prefabs in this country. And that population is growing. And the children who are born tonight will be knocking on the doors in 4 years' time. And because it takes the person's department beside you 5 years to process an application for a school extension, they will be knocking on the door of a prefab. Why did this come about? Because the money was there. Fortunes were made. Builders couldn't get enough people here at home to work. They had to get labourers imported from everywhere and anywhere else to build. And money was not a problem. And the frequent cry was, I don't care how much it costs, just how soon can you build it? And I acutely recall, in listening to and hearing representatives from the Chambers of Commerce in Carrick-on-Shannon, when they met me in the spring of 1997 on a deputation when I was on a visit to Sligo Leitrim. And they told me they wanted the urban renewal scheme for Carrick-on-Shannon. I said, fine. What part of the town did you have in mind? And they said, oh, no, you don't understand. We don't want to discriminate between Carrick, within Carrick. Nor indeed do we want to discriminate within Leitrim, between the different villages and towns in Leitrim. We want Section 23 urban renewal for the whole of Leitrim. I had to bite my lip. I had to bite my lip. If you go to that part of the country now, you see the prefab schools and the empty buildings. If you go to the whole of the North Shannon, it's a wasteland of buildings that will never become homes. And why? Because the government of which you were a member, under Mr. McCreevy as Minister for Finance, gave that Section 23 to the whole North Shannon Basin. So the legacy of the Celtic Tiger is not going to be the soundly built buildings that our grandparents were educated in, but buildings that we're going to have to plough back into the ground. Plough back into the ground. If ever there was such conspicuous waste, willful, criminal waste, that's just but one example. Time prevents me from citing many, many more. But we heard not one single word, Taoiseach, not one single identification with the wasted money for a generation that will never come back again. It's gone. Like the savings that people had in bank shares, which was their pension. Prudent middle-class people, old beyond an age where they couldn't buy proper pension plans for themselves and were advised to put their money in banks. Not for the appreciation of the shares, but for the dividend. They're now impoverished. They're impoverished. And who do they think of when they look at the despair around them in terms of buildings that have lost their value, which they can't sell, and the fear of old age? Taoiseach, do you appreciate or understand the deep-seated anger and disgust and contempt of which the people hold you and your colleagues? My party leader has already said it. I had to go out to Glasstool this morning on personal business, in the Dart station in Glasstool. When are you going to get them out? How long, much more can we put up with them? There is palpable anger, disgust, and a despair, which just doesn't affect you or the Fianna Fáil party. You have infected us all. You've contaminated the Republican democracy that is enshrined in this chamber. Because some members of this House were crooked or contemptuous or lax in what they did. We've all been infected. That's the virus that has become Fianna Fáil. That's why it is unbelievable that you would even have the temerity to come into this House and ask that we vote confidence in you and your colleagues. There is a litany of waste. There is a litany of contemptuous consumption and dismissal of, well, as Noel Dempsey said, Deputy Minister Noel Dempsey, what's 50 million for the voting machines that even Robert Mugabe would not buy? 50 million would transform schools across the country. 50 million, as any deputy in this House could tell you, could be spent in so many different ways. But it was a piddling sum. Petty cash. And you have treated taxpayers' money as petty cash. And you have the temerity now to seek confidence from us. And you mentioned earlier on, in relation to the way you've delivered policies and you're on the right course now. How do we know? How do we know we're on the right course? Because the Wall Street Journal tells us? How do we know that you're actually getting good advice or implementing it? Why should we trust or have confidence in people who've blown the balloon to actually restore it back to some degree of credibility? You're going to escape in 4 or 5 weeks' time into the summer. And I can see in all your faces and the weariness of your response to questions that, boys, you just can't wait. You just can't wait. But you know, the people are not going to go away. You don't even have the courage, Taoiseach, to have 3 by-elections. You don't even have the courage to have 3 by-elections. And because you don't have the courage to have 3 by-elections, the children of this republic are not getting the referendum to which they're entitled. Why? Not because of legal complexities, not because you can't afford the referendum, but because all of you are so scared of your own political futures that the children of this nation are not being cherished equally by you. Not being cherished equally by you for a pure, mean, miserable political cowardice.
Hey, 1 minute.
Political cowardice that prevents you from going to the country. The Republican Oliver Cromwell gave advice to a decrepit, corrupt, and now defunct government and parliament in Westminster many, many years ago. I offer it to you. In God's name, go.
Now we move on.